what I wanted to talk with you about just a little bit here is some of the dueling briefs that have been filed in this case. We just got the deadline for all the amicus briefs passed earlier this month, or in September, and we had some significant groups come down on either side of this. You had, for instance, the ACLU and the NAACP in referencing specifically the racial aspect of may issue gun permits laws. They acknowledged the sort of racist history of this type of policy and said that it was not the appropriate remedy to strike down this New York's law completely, because New York's law is not specifically designed with racist intent, is I think essentially the argument they're making there, and that for that equal protection suits are better remedy for any concerns about the racial outcomes of these kind of laws that still exist today, rather than Second Amendment suits. And then you had groups like the National African American Gun Association and the Public Defenders of New York come down on the other side, where they discussed the racist history of these kinds of policies and also the disparity in how they're currently enforced in New York as well, with minorities facing more prosecutions compared to their, actual distribution in society, as we've often talked about, right, with lots of other laws about how how their actual enforcement is impacts different communities differently. Usually, with African Americans, especially young African American men, being prosecuted at higher rates for crimes committed under these laws, and so there's this dichotomy, right? There's this distinction between two sides here that see different, have totally different views of whether this law is racially discriminatory or whether it's constitutional, it should be struck down. I just wanted you to speak a little bit to that divide and give us some of your insight.
Well, so it's a difficult issue, right? Because there's no question that there's an expectation that any time, because of the way the American criminal justice system works, there's an expectation on the left that any kind of law that you pass is going to be enforced is more likely to be enforced against Black people than white people, because Black communities are more heavily policed. So on the one hand, the Black voters strongly support gun control because Black neighborhoods tend to bear the brunt of gun violence. So they want to see more controls on firearms because they want to reduce gun violence. At the same time, there's this issue of, Black people who are simply trying to protect themselves who end up getting prosecuted under gun laws, strict gun laws. And so you have this sort of competing interests, and I can kind of understand it from both sides. I think that the larger issue is that there are so many guns that it's very hard for gun restrictions to be effective in any real sense. Like, I'm not sure, if this law was struck down, I'm not sure how much in New York would change. Just moving from DC to Texas, which is a place that has a very obviously, a very long tradition of gun ownership. The Texas legislature passes these pro-gun laws every year, and there's not a lot that really changes. And part of the reason for that is, you can pass as many open carry laws as you want, but every business in Texas is going to be you can't bring firearms in here. So it's really not convenient to take your gun literally everywhere you go if you live in a city. Because, property rights, you're not allowed in a particular business establishment. And I'm not sure how many people in New York, even if they're allowed to, if the Supreme Court loosens or strikes down the law, it seems likely to me that the New York legislature would pass a different kind of law that would be designed to, evade whatever legal standard that the Supreme Court sets up, because their constituents, it's a blue state, their constituents are concerned about gun violence and they want some kind of restrictions to lower gun violence. So it seems to me that, even though this is a big case, and maybe you can correct me on this, Dean, because you know this stuff better than I do, but it seems to me that not a tremendous amount changes if this regulatory scheme is struck down.